We all know that someone in the court is gunning for the lady. The question is, who? The lady laughed as though this were the most ridiculous thing she had ever heard. Who would do such a thing? To what gain? She was stroking the gourdling as it sat happily in her lap, but I couldn't help but notice the less than trusting looks I was receiving on the end of the little thing. Apparently it had a longer memory than I would have thought. Tobias, Randy, and I had formed a council in the security shed again, putting our heads together as we tried to figure out what this was all about. The security shed had been unanimously voted as the spot for clandestine meetings, and it seemed appropriate. It was where we always met to talk shop and discuss plans. So, why wouldn't we come here? This time was a little different, though, because I had insisted that we invite the lady, too. She hadn't wanted to come. She had been too busy, but I was coming to realize that she should have been involved before now. The plot was against her, after all, and it only made sense that she should be aware of it. We had kept the secret for now, mostly because we were uncertain of it, but this was a clear and precise message. They could bury us in bureaucracy without having to raise a blade, and that was the most terrifying thing of all. Probably the same person plotting against you at the banquet, I said, putting it out there so she could judge the threat. What? She asked, looking around at the three of us. Who? Why has this been kept from me? Her gaze settled on Randy, and he didn't seem to like it much. We wanted to make sure before making accusations. We don't know fairy politics like the two of you do, and Tobias seemed to think that there might be some credence to the threat as well, so we began to form plans. Tobias didn't seem pleased about being brought into this, but he accepted it. It would seem, based on what Randy's second has reported, that Titania's champion is plotting against you. Why, Sander? The lady said, looking between the three of us like we might be pulling a joke. You're serious, aren't you? Why, Sander would never do something like this. He has been champion of the court for centuries. He has always welcomed me warmly during court events. I cannot imagine that he would turn against me, especially in such an overt manner. I overheard a conversation during the event, something I was obviously not supposed to have heard, between Lysander and another who I didn't see. They were discussing their responsibilities and the matter of your imprisonment. Apparently, they had worked with the Green Man to seal you in the statue form I saw you in, and they were very upset that you had broken free. The lady thought about that for a moment, worrying at her lip as she tried to put these thoughts together. Why would they do that? I've always found a place within Titania's court. Her people adore me. We're like sisters, she and I. Whoever Lysander was talking to felt that you were a danger to the natural order, I said, unable to look at her as the anxiety wafted off her like a fever heat. I've never intentionally tried to harm the natural order. I love this world order, and I've always tried to act within its framework. I think, I began, trying to find a way to phrase it without hurting her, that some of their fears might not be baseless. She looked at me, shocked, and I saw some of the rage within her trying to riot to the surface again. Ever since you've been taking sacrifices from Stragview, something has changed. You aren't yourself sometimes. You're more powerful, more capable, but some of that power has changed you. I know there have been times I've been afraid of what you might do. Sometimes I've been afraid to speak my mind, and that's not something I like seeing. We depend on you, depend on your strength, and fear is never something we should feel for our mother." She looked ashamed. I had no idea. I will admit, I have noticed that I'm prone to anger more than normal. Sometimes my emotions are just more than I can handle," she said, bowing her head. This changes some things." "Why?" Randy said, and she turned to look at him in surprise. "Why should it change anything? So you feel a little more than normal. We all feel things. It's just another aspect of you, something that you have to learn to handle. As for the fairies, this don't change nothing. We have our place and they have theirs. Long as we don't mess with their precious order, they should have no reason to mess with ours, right? I get that we need allies and that we need help with the winter when it comes, but if they want to make trouble, then we can make trouble right back. So we'll play their little game and stand their little tests, but at the end of the day, this is our place, and they can come skulking in here at their own peril." The lady was nodding, smiling at all of us as she pulled the gordling against her chest. "Thank you. I'm grateful to have your support and your devotion." She got up then, turning for the door. "I must return to my work. I trust you three with my security and with the safety of this park. I'm proud to have such staunch defenders within my legions and such friends by my side." The happiness came off her like a warm summer day, and it took us a few minutes to stop smiling after she had gone. "It's pretty clear," Randy said after some time, "that our snooper wasn't from Kashmir Tribune. I think we had a spy from Lysander peeking in on us, if not the bastard himself. He would be risking much by coming himself. Fae do not often do in person what they can send a cat's paw to do instead. Had he come, he would have been undetectable, I fear," Tobias said. "Will he try to bring more red tape, you think?" Randy asked, but Tobias shook his head. "No, I think it will be harder for him to be believed if he goes that route again. The next time he makes a move, it won't be so subtle, so benign. We will need to be on guard." "We will be," I said, surprising even myself. "We know he's gunning for us now, and next time we'll be ready." "I pray it is so," Tobias said, "because next time it may not be so easily sussed out." The Botanical Garden opened Monday, and the whole community nearly lost its mind over it. The Halloween festivities would persist all the way until October 31st, ending with a late-night spooktacular, and I don't think I've seen better sales on season passes the whole time I've been here. Some people came every night, sometimes twice, and the gardens were packed. Some of the dread seemed to have lifted from the place, now that the disappearances were less often, and people seemed less hesitant to come to the park. The lady had made more of the Gordlings, having Tobias place a ward on the front gate so they wouldn't wander out, and people found them as spooky as they did fun. They wandered the grounds, making their way into places they hadn't been intended to be, and I was pretty sure I saw a group of gnomes riding a few of them as they lumbered along. "They will prove useful in the future," the lady confided in me. "Just imagine how the green man will flee when he sees his worst fear moving towards him." Her eyes sparkled at the thought, and I suppose that much like the gnomes, the Gordlings were here to stay. So, for 2 weeks, the people came and experienced the haunted maze, bobbed for apples in the lily pond, carved pumpkins, marveled at the treats, and had a great time. Even Dr. Winters and her girlfriend came to take in the sights, exclaiming over all of it to the general approval of the lady. "It's amazing," she said, as she picked up one of the candy apples. I can't wait to see what you do for Christmas." The lady's eyes suddenly grew merry, but to my surprise, she quenched it just as fast. "I think we had more than enough excitement last year. This year will likely be very small, if we do anything at all. Dr. Winters looked a little sad to hear it, but I wasn't. The energy wafting from the lady was a little clearer, a little less hectic, and I think maybe she had figured out a better way to process her excitement. Whatever she was getting from Stragview or from the inmates that she accepted into the pond was being better utilized now, and hopefully would continue to be in the future. The sacrifices were a needed evil, but how she processed them was up to her. She was the lady, and the power ultimately lay with her. As November 1st rolled in and the lady retired for some much-needed rest, the Brandylow sat about the bonfire, and we had our own little celebration. Wine was passed, food was eaten, furry bodies danced around the shifting flames, and merriment was in the air as much as the music was. Randy and I sat on the outskirts, watching them as they capered as we reflected on the year. You know, kid, I wasn't so sure you were going to make it when I first saw you. Oh? I asked, grinning despite myself. I'm glad you proved me wrong. Makes me glad to know that if something should happen to me, the lady would have someone by her side. I think I rest easier knowing that, especially knowing it's you. We touched wineskins and relaxed back into the grass that surrounded the bonfire area. Who knew what sort of adventures the new year might bring, and how many more adventures we may have to come before we got there. You're still here. Thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague here. Always a pleasure to see all my new and old viewers coming by for another one of my spooky tales. If you'd like to support the show, you can always take part in one of our channel offers through Fume or Aura, or you can just click on another video when they come up. I'd really appreciate it. For our newer viewers, we also have lots of playlists and other things if you'd like to get caught up. I know some of my series have been going on for quite a while. If you'd like to get my latest book, there's a link down below that'll take you to my Amazon page. Towesey Homestead just came out, so if that's something you'd like to get your hands on, go ahead and have a look down there. If you'd like a signed copy, you can go ahead and email me from my email address on the site, and I'll get with you about shipping information and ship you a signed copy. If you'd like to support the channel in a more monetary fashion, we also have membership through YouTube, and we've got a Patreon that you can get the information for in the description. We have lots of tiers and everything to suit your needs. Patrons that support on the $10 tier, that's our Ghostly Reader tier, get a book anytime I write one, signed and on their doorstep. As you may have noticed, there's a list of patrons and members on the screen, and I'd like to personally thank every one of them for taking a hand in the future of this channel. Well, that's enough for tonight. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.